Hello Achievers, today I am with a new amazing guy. He's Tom Ziglar, the CEO of Ziglar Inc. He's with me to answer my question. We will talk about fulfillment and success, and you will learn a lot in this interview. So follow this interview. Hello Tom,
Good to see you.
how are you today?
Welcome to our offices.
Yeah, it's a great office.
Yeah.
I love the place where we are doing the interview. I would love to know, before to ask you a lot of questions, just who are you and what you are doing today?
Yep. I'm Tom Ziglar, and Zig Ziglar's my father.
Yeah.
And I tell people I've been in the business that we're in for 48 years. I feel like I was born into it.
Yeah.
I'm the CEO here. I've been the CEO for 18 years. And what we do as a company is, as I tell people, we're in the transportation business. We help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And we do that through various areas, but mainly it's personal development, motivation, inspiration, attitude, character, the core foundational things. We've learned that you can take all the skills training in the world, and we believe that's very important. We do leadership and sales and presentation skills, but you can take all those skills, and if you don't put them on the right kind of person, one of character, one who has what we call persistent consistency or work ethic, a great attitude, unless you have those components, it's just not going to get the results. So through our personal development teachings, we do that one-on-one, we do that in seminars, we do that through CD and DVD and online programs. We also have a business group that works with business owners, helping them develop their business systems. And then we work in corporate America. I do keynotes all over the world. We have others on our team who do the same thing, and we work on professional development, sales, motivation, leadership, management, all the different areas. So to be here, I'm incredibly blessed. Dad has laid such an incredible foundation. He's known all over the world. Everywhere I go and speak, whether it's the UK or Australia, wherever we go, it's like I have brothers and sisters already in the room.
Great.
Right.
And you know, I'm very glad to do this interview today because you have another perspective than the other people I interviewed, and I would love to know. You were born with this mindset. So, according to you, is there a difference between be born with that or to learn maybe 20 or 30 years after?
Well, whether you're born into an environment like I was, where
Yeah, just to be specific, I ask that because I want to help children to learn and
Right.
And learn what you learn with your father and the environment. So that's why I'm asking that.
Okay. There are some advantages to being raised the way I was raised, to be surrounded by it. But I've met literally thousands of people who had similar advantages that I've had,
Yeah.
but who didn't take advantage of it. And so ultimately, it doesn't matter where you're born, who your parents are,
Yeah.
the circumstances of life. There's a point in time where you realize you have a choice to make. And that choice is real simple. It's, do I let the circumstances become the excuse for the decisions that I make?
Yeah.
Or do I realize that no matter how tough it is, I can make a decision that it's going to improve where I am? See, Dad said this. He said, we can't control our circumstances, but we can control the way we respond to our circumstances before they happen to us. And so there are many people, and I know in your journeys you've seen the same, people who came out of tough backgrounds, whether it's from a broken family or out of poverty. Dad, his own story, he was raised from the time he was 5 years old. His father died when he was 5. So his mother, single mom, 5th grade education, heart of the Great Depression is when his father died. So the poorest time in recent modern history, in the last 100 years, Dad grew up having to work. He started work when he was 6 years old, just to put a little bit of extra food on the table for the family. Mom had a 5th grade education. He never did well in school. So you can start out of any circumstance and realize that if you make a decision, like you said earlier when we were talking, if you make a decision to start today, incrementally you can put things into your mind. Dad has a quote. It says this: you are who you are and what you are because of what's gone into your mind. You can change who you are, you can change what you are, you can change where you are, by changing what goes into your mind,
Great.
right? And that's real powerful to know that really who we are is just the sum total of everything that's come into us that we accept and believe. And we can change where we, that's the great news. We can change. If we're not happy with who we are, we can change that simply by changing what we put into our mind
Yeah.
and changing how we believe it.
And I would love to know, because you say that you met some people, they had this kind of environment, but they didn't take action. So according to you, why people have maybe the good environment and they don't use it?
Yeah. I think it's because they've never understood that they are in control of their own destiny. It's pretty scary when you think about it, to realize that your future totally depends on what you do. It's much easier to say, well, that door is closed to me because these things have happened, right? That's safe. Nobody's going to cause a ruckus, as Seth Godin says, if you just kind of cruise through life. And so it takes a little bit of courage to stand up and say, you know what? Everybody's going that way. That's not the path for me. I'm going this way. I'm going to make decisions today that are going to help me get closer to where I want to go. And I think they're afraid. I think that because you take personal responsibility, right? You have to make that decision. But guess what? If you don't take personal responsibility, that means somebody else is telling you what you're going to do with your life.
Yeah.
Right? And who wants that? We all talk about freedom. Well, the ultimate freedom is choosing who you're going to be and where you're going to go.
Yeah, it's great. How did you create your own identity and not trying maybe to become Zig Ziglar too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question, because I struggled with this. For years, people told me I should go and speak. And I always hesitated because I was afraid that people were going to expect me to speak like my father.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's Zig Ziglar. He's maybe perhaps the greatest speaker who's ever lived. I mean, his peers rank him at that level. Dad never claimed that for himself. It's what other people said. So I had this concept, this mental mindset that, wait a second, if I go and talk, they're going to expect me to be like him in style. And you see, that's totally contrary to the way he raised me. When I was young and growing up, and even not too long ago, Dad would tell me this. He would say, son, whatever you want to do, just do it two ways, with 100% integrity and with 100% effort. Well, guess what? If all you need to do is do it with integrity and dedication, effort, commitment, that means you can do anything. You can be an artist. You can be a dancer. You can be a salesperson. You can be an executive. You can be a speaker. As long as you do it, whatever you do, with 100% integrity and 100% effort. That's
advice.
That's what he told me. And so about 4 years ago, I realized, hey, wait a second. Nobody expects me to be like Dad.
Yeah.
They just want me to be me.
Yeah.
And so what that meant is I had to develop the gifts that I had. Because my speaking style is a lot different. I'm more reserved. I don't run around the stage and jump up and down like Dad did. I tell people I'm kind of a nerd. Well, guess what? There's a whole lot of nerds out there. There's a whole lot of people. And so if I become the best version of me I can become, then I connect. If I try to be somebody else, they don't believe you. People are smart. If you're trying to pull off something you're not, people figure it out.
And do you tell the same lessons to your daughter?
Yes. I try to every day.
Yeah.
She's 18. She's deciding where she wants to go in life. She's going into college this year. She's incredible.
It's a great advice, I think, to give that to children and youth and everybody, to 1% integrity and 1% dedication and commitment to reach what you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of what we teach is based on what we call biblical truth. It comes out of the Bible. And even though we don't go out and share, Bible verses and things like that often, unless it's the right environment, there's a proverb that says, train up a child in the way they should go. And in the original text, I believe it was Hebrew, train up means in the way they're bent. So each of us come into the world, we've got our own personality. And so as parents, our responsibility is to recognize the personality the child has and encourage them to go with that.
Help him to find his own power
Right.
and not give.
Right. So the guidelines is character and integrity. It's the principles and values. It's not what you go and do. We work with wounded warriors. You know, these are military men and women who are on the battlefield. They get injured. And so in a way, they're, you know, everything they wanted to do was taken away from them. And a lot of things that they had were taken away from them. So we talk about you've got to be before you can do and do before you can have.
Yeah.
We call it the be, do, have philosophy. And so if our focus is, I want to do this and I want to have that, we get into trouble because those can be taken away from you. If you focus on the kind of person you want to be, then all the doors are open and that can never be taken from you. And so I think parents make the mistake of focusing on what the child's going to do or what they're going to have instead of the person you want them to become.
Great, I love that. Thank you very much. You met a lot of amazing people, including your dad when you were children, when you were a child. According to you, what did you learn from all these amazing people? If you have to do a summarize of the greatest advice we have to remember to become successful and happy in this life, what could be your best advices?
You know, I'm in the middle of developing a series right now. It's the Ziglar Leadership Series. The Ziglar Legacy Series actually is the name of it, the Ziglar Legacy Series. And I'm interviewing all of these icons, business leaders, authors, speakers, people who've really made an incredible difference in the world. And the thread is they were all impacted by Dad, right? Somewhere from the platform, in their books, in the running of their business, they acknowledge and say, hey, I read a Zig Ziglar book, I listened to a cassette tape, a CD, I saw him speak, and what he said had an impact on me. And so, in fact, the first interview we did was Seth Godin. And Seth gave us this little bit of advice. He said, when these people come in, ask them, each one of them, in their own opinion, if somebody were to ask you, what are the top 5 things you could do to be successful in your personal life, your professional life, and your spiritual life? What would they be? And so all of these great leaders, you know, Dave Ramsey, Seth Godin, Dan Cathy, Dr. Ken Blanchard, all, you know, just these amazing people with these incredible careers are all answering that. And it's interesting to me how they each have their own
way,
priority, but it's all similar. You know, first it talks about decide who you want to become. You know, what are the dreams? What do you want to do? And then become the kind of person that can achieve that, right? You know, there's all these things we want to have, all these goals, dreams, and ambitions. And then we have to decide what kind of person are we going to be. Well, our culture's backwards. It's all over the world. You know, we focus on what we want to have instead of what we want to be. When you become the right kind of person, these are all byproducts. You get that. It's like an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, does somebody show up for the Olympic Games without ever practicing, training, eating, competing, you know, all through their life? No, they don't. They go through thousands of hours to get to that point. They go through thousands of hours becoming that person who can win. Yet we all want to win. We just don't want to go through that process. So character and integrity at the very top of the list on every one of them. If you're not trustworthy, if you can't be trusted, you're never going to have long-term sustainable success. I mean, it's just impossible. Right behind that's work ethic. You know, how bad do you want it? Right in that category is what are you doing it for? What's the why? You know, unless you have that motivator of why, it's not going to make a difference.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that. And you were talking about the third principle, the third keys. It was about, you said integrity, become what you want to be, who you want to become. Do you have other things you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of the components are, what are your dreams?
Yeah.
I have this quote, and it says, "Your dreams are the edges of the puzzle of your life."
Yeah.
And the way I break it down is, I'll just ask you: have you ever done a tabletop puzzle? Like the ones with all the pieces that you put
Yeah.
on. How do you start that when you do a puzzle? The edges.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how when we have a puzzle we want to complete, we do the edges, we do the corners.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So a study was done a number of years ago with school kids, and they built these elementary schools. So these are schools that had kids ages, say, 6 years old to 12.
Mm.
They opened the school, and they did something interesting. On the playground, they had the playground equipment right next to the school. They had a concrete area right next to the school, but they didn't put a fence around the playground. So the behavioral psychologists went, and they watched the kids when they went out for recess. They wanted to see how they were going to, use the equipment. Well, when the kids went out to recess, all they did was they stuck on the playground equipment or by the teacher. They had all this space that they could use, huge. They could play catch, they could play soccer, football, tag, whatever they wanted to do, but they didn't, because they didn't feel secure. There was no fence around it. And you see, in life, our dreams, that's the edges. And so when we dream about everything we want to be, do, or have, it could be leaving a legacy, it could be a retirement home, it could be a vacation, it could be providing college education for my family.
Yeah.
It could be a car. I mean, when we start to dream, what we're doing is we're creating an edge. And so when we go to sleep at night, our brain works in a crazy way. It connects where we are, which is our strengths, our talents, our personality, our experience, to where we want to go. And the puzzle pieces start getting put in place. And so when we put our dreams out there, we expand our territory. We no longer play in the comfort zone next to the teacher or by the playground equipment. We start going out and playing in the whole space that God's given us.
I love the way you explain that. It's a new way to explain goals, and I love what you're saying.
And so the sad thing is probably 95% of the people never have their dreams written down, their goals written down, the things they want to be, do, or have. And so it's like they go out to the playground every day and they stay right here. They got all this space they could play in, but they stay right here. And so just the act of writing it down and putting a plan in place allows you to go to the next step. So we talk about dreams. We talk about you've got to do everything with character and integrity. We talk about you've got to have an incredible work ethic. And then you've got to have balance, meaning the 7 areas of your personal life have got to be in sync. The physical, the mental, the spiritual, the family, the career, the financial, and the personal. All of those have to be in balance.
How do you balance in each area, each fields, each areas?
So here's the thing. Most people, they go through life and all of a sudden they go, something's not right. Right? I'm not happy. I feel kind of just out of sorts. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. And so you take an inventory and you go, well, is it my health? Is my health bad? Because if you're feeling physically bad, then it's hard to be productive anywhere else.
Yeah, your emotion change.
Or maybe it's financial. Maybe I'm in a lot of debt, credit card debt, whatever, and it's stressing me out. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I don't have any security. Or maybe it's my family. Maybe I need to go and build a relationship with my spouse again. Maybe I need to know my kids again, right? So you go around these areas, and so what we've done is there's 7 areas of life, and we've created 10 pretty simple questions that you ask yourself on each one of these areas. Like, I'll just do physical. Are you eating the right kind of foods? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you exercising regularly? Do you weigh about the right amount of weight? Are you under any stress? So we ask these kind of questions, and you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. You could be a 1 on some, a 5 on some, a 10 on some. So you add up those 10 questions, you divide by 10, And that gives you a rating. Maybe you're a 5 out of 10. Maybe you're an 8 out of 10. Well, you do that for each one of these areas. And then you look at it and you go, that's it. The 2 or 3 that are ranking low, that's where you need to spend your effort on. Now, here's something else that people need to understand is it's hard to have a balanced life every single day, every single week, every single month. I mean, let's face it. Sometimes we got to focus on getting in shape, right? Sometimes we got to focus on growing our business. Sometimes we got to focus on our family relationships, the people that are important to us. And so it's hard to be balanced all the time, but the reality is we can work on all of them regularly, and we can expand out. We call that expanding the wheel, right?
So each time we are focusing in one thing, we are unbalanced, but we have the responsibility to come back and say, okay, I can raise the other iron in my life.
Right. And then we also encourage this. There's 3 things that we think people should work on every day. Because they're constants. And the reason is real simple. Life is hard. You're going to lose a job. A relationship's going to break off. You could have a health challenge, or somebody you love could have a health challenge. Life is just hard. I mean, let's face it. So, since we know life is hard, what can we do to, when life gets hard, we have the edge, we have the advantage. And Dad said this, he said, life is tough, but the tougher we are on ourselves, the easier life will be on us. And so there's 3 areas that if you work on every day, kind of give you the edge. One's the physical. If you're in good physical shape, eating right, exercising, taking good care of yourself, getting enough sleep, then you have the stamina and the energy when life gets hard, right? If you got to get an enormous project done in a short period of time, and it's going to require 15, 16-hour days for a couple of weeks, if you're in good physical shape,
you can do it.
You can do it, right? Now, we're not meant to do that for long periods of time.
Yeah, but you are ready to do it if the life are challenging you.
And then mental, okay? The reality is we don't have to look for bad news. Bad news just finds us. It doesn't matter whether you're at Starbucks, checking in at the airport, even in a church parking lot, bad news will walk up. Turn on the radio, bad news. Turn on the TV, bad news. Go to the internet, bad news. It's just there. And so mentally, we need to understand that. So that means that we need to, on purpose, every day, put the good, the clean, the pure, the powerful, and the positive into our mind. We need to purposely choose to associate with good people who have good, positive mental attitudes. Because when the going gets tough, when life throws something at us, we got to have that reserve, that mental capacity, that internal motivation. We need to have that muscle already built to say, okay, bad news, I understand. Yeah. That's just life. But you don't know me. I've already prepared for that, right? And then the third one we say is spiritual. And we emphasize this as well. And the reason we do is because there are things in life that none of us understand. I don't know what the future is going to have, right? And so for me personally, I spend time with my Creator every day. I have the saying, it's not my saying, I got it from somebody else. I have no idea what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. And so since I know there are things I don't understand, I have to have a relationship with the one who does understand, right? Because when people come with the hard questions, what's the answer, right? It's got to be something beyond. So for me,
I love the way you are explaining the purpose of spirituality. It's great.
Yep. So, for me, I see too many people who kind of worship the creation versus the Creator. And I have this analogy. Let's say that you are in the jungle in the Amazon, right? And you're lost. And there's snakes and quicksand and piranha and mountains and big bugs. And you've got to get out of the jungle, right? And so you have 2 choices. You could either have a map that'll get you out, or you could have the map maker. Which choice are you going to pick?
Map maker.
It's the map maker, right? That's why for me, when I talk about the spiritual, it's a relationship. right? It's not a religion, it's a relationship. It's my one-on-one time with the Creator, who's the map maker. So for me, it's the Creator.
Yeah.
You know, God, Christ, the Creator. That's for me. And it's so much more powerful than a rule book, than a religion, because it's a relationship. You know, I want the map maker walking with me. I want him to go, whoa, watch out. You know, I want that. But a relationship's two-way, right? You know, it's not just reading, it's praying and listening and asking.
Yeah.
So that's what we tell people. That's what you need to work on every day. Why? Because life's hard. C.S. Lewis said this. He said, life is so hard, or this world is so hard because we weren't built for this world.
Yeah.
We're a soul with a body, not a body with a soul.
I love that. Thank you. It's great. What is your next goal for the Ziglar company, Ziglar Inc.?
There's a couple of things that are like always on the, you know, right in the view screen of what we want to do. Our founding mission statement is to be the difference maker in the personal, family, business, and spiritual lives of enough people to make a positive difference in the world. So that's a big mission, right? So how do we do that? Well, we bring programs in the personal area, the business area, the family area, the professional area that help people achieve those things. And so the couple of things that we have on the horizon, and all of this is about legacy. See, Dad has created an amazing brand, an incredible reputation. We're a reputation company. You know, people want to do business with us because they trust us. That's why they want to do business with us. So now, you know, Dad had a gift. He could go and speak in front of, you know, 20,000, 40,000, 80,000 people and just have the whole stadium and is, you know, just excited. But that's not here anymore.
Yeah.
Right? But what changed lives wasn't him personally. It was the message that he brought. Right? Because what he was sharing was truth. And what he did is he got people to take action on the truth. And when you do that, you get results. And so now we've got to carry that legacy, that same message out. And we've got to use new ways. So we're doing it through a couple of programs. We have a program for business owners because we believe that if, you know, small business is really the key globally. It doesn't matter whether it's the United States or France or anywhere. Small businesses, when they do well, the economy does well. When small businesses suffer, everything suffers, right? Big business, you know, I love big business, but are their motives and goals really in line with what's best for me as a person, for our community? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You know, it's a hard answer. Are governments looking out for us? Sometimes yes, maybe most of the time no, right? Educational institutions, right? You know, are they looking out to preserve themselves, or are they looking out, you know, wholeheartedly 100% focused on helping each individual become all they can be? You know, I'll let the audience decide where education comes in.
Yeah.
You know, there's always beacons of hope and light in every category. You know, there's always the perfect, great politician. There's always the ultimate teacher, you know, and that's what we need. We need more of those. But the reason I love small business owners is because if they build their own business on character and integrity, and then they teach their team members, their employees, these principles, and they encourage them to dream. Like when somebody comes to work for you, if you discover what their dreams are and you show them how being successful in their job role helps them get closer to their dream, then they're going to become a friend, they're going to become loyal, they're going to grow, and guess what? They may leave your business and start their own. Well, you've just had a one-on-one impact with your community when that happens. There is no greater joy than helping somebody else achieve a higher level than they thought possible.
Yeah.
Right? And so business owners is a key focus for us because we can really have an impact there. And then we do a lot with corporate America too. You know, like I said before, we do leadership training, sales training, presentation, and the techniques are awesome. But the motive and the character and the principles and the values behind it of why you do it is what makes the difference. So if we can change the DNA of a culture of a business to where they start helping their employees achieve their dreams and start focusing on character and integrity, then that has a huge impact everywhere you go.
How do you build a company when the company was focused on one person?
Right. That's, I've had other business leaders come to me and say, it's harder to kind of redirect, refocus a business built on something than it is to start from scratch. And I agree, it's very, very difficult. Is there any reason for us to start from scratch? Absolutely not. Because Dad himself said that it's not me personally that's causing this to happen. It's just me using my gifts, sharing truth. And it's the truth that gets the change, the impact. And so what we've done is from a simple branding is we have two companies. We have Ziglar Corporation, and then we have Ziglar Inc. And we did that because Ziglar Inc. is carrying forward the message. So it's Ziglar. And so what we want to be synonymous is, hey, Ziglar was founded by one of the greatest leaders, innovators, speakers, authors, thinkers of our time on these principles. And this,
like Carnegie, it's not
right.
Dale Carnegie, it's Carnegie something.
Right, Carnegie training,
Carnegie.
right. And people still, out of respect, say Dale Carnegie, and they should, because he was an incredible individual. Yeah. In fact, early in Dad's career, he worked for Carnegie. So, there's a legacy that passes on, and in our industry, we celebrate and get excited about other companies who are teaching these principles because they work. And so when we look, 2 centuries into the future about what we're going to be about, the one thing that'll never change is the principles and values that we believe in. Okay. We live in a world that believes in situational ethics. It's okay to act this way in this situation and this way with this situation. And what we teach is absolute truth. And Dad had a funny, he'd said he'd come home from he said some things just aren't relative. Some things are absolutes. And he said this, he said, I'd come home from a trip and I'd ask my wife, the redhead, sugar baby, that's what he calls Mom. He'd say he came home from hundreds of trips through his career, and not once did she ever ask him if he was relatively faithful while he was gone.
Yeah.
Right? Would you hire an accountant who was relatively honest? That'd be dumb, right? When it comes to somebody handling your money, you want somebody who's 100% honest. And so what we say is that there's some things that are just absolutes. And so that's what we teach. When it comes to honesty and integrity and character, that's what we teach. And so that'll never change.
Great. I love the way you see things. It's great. Do you have some life lessons you would like to share to youth?
Maybe the biggest life lesson or the biggest thing that I learned is I kept asking myself, how is it that when Dad would speak, that people would listen, go take action, and get results, and then we would get these testimonial letters back? Because I'll be honest with you, I've heard the best speakers of the last 30 years. Because with Dad's platform and his stage, I would go to, hundreds of these events, and I would see all these great speakers. And if I'm like you, you go and you hear a great speaker and you start taking notes, right? Have you ever done this? You look back at your notes like 6 months later and you haven't done anything? It's like we all have that. So what's the difference between a leader, a speaker, somebody who gets you to take action versus someone who just gets you excited? So I tried to figure that out with Dad. What is it that when he would speak, people would get excited and then take action and then get results?
Yeah.
And so I call this his secret influence formula or his secret leadership formula. And the reason I call it secret is because I don't think Dad even knew he was doing it.
Yeah, now you want to know that.
Right. Right. So there's 5 steps to it. There's 5 key points: hope, identity, will, skill, and refill. And these are the 5 things he did every time he spoke. The first thing is he would come out and he would build hope. He'd ask the audience a question. He'd say, how many of you here today believe there's something you can do in your personal life, your family life, or your business life in the next 2 weeks that would make things worse? And of course, everybody would laugh, because you don't expect that question from Zig Ziglar. And then he would say, okay, how many of you here today believe there's something you can do in your personal life, your family life, or your business life that would make things better? And everybody would raise their hands. And he'd say this. He'd say, whether you realize it or not, you have just admitted to yourself that you have the power to make things better or worse, and the choice is yours.
Wow.
And that's where hope is born. Hopeless people believe there's nothing they can do, so they don't take action. So he creates an atmosphere of hope. So if you're mentoring somebody, if you're trying to lead an organization, if you're talking to your kids, you inspire them with hope. You let them know there's something they can do, right? Then the second one is identity. Identity took me a long time to figure it out. I read this book called The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, and the subtitle should have been, it wasn't, but it should have been, What Makes a Champion a Champion? And so he went and he studied all these world champions, like sprinters and soccer players and musicians, the best of the best. What makes them that? And he's a nerd like me. He's a neuroscientist guy. And so he was studying, how does the brain work? And so there was two things in the book that really struck me. One was that he researched the last 10 world record holders of the 100-meter race. And he discovered that they were like the 7th of 7 kids, the 7 of 8. In other words, they were the youngest or second youngest born in big families. 6 of 6, 8 of 8, 7 of 8. And so then he studied their brothers and sisters. Because if that guy is a world record holder, then are his brothers and sisters fast? None of them had world-class speed. So then they knew it wasn't genetics or environment that made that guy fast. So then they studied how they were raised. And what they found was that when they were a small child and the brain was developing, these small children would look up and he would see a carbon copy of himself and his brothers and sisters, but they were just a little older and a little bigger. But the brain wasn't developed enough to recognize that they were faster because they were bigger or they were faster because they were older. What the brain said was, well, they're fast, so I must be fast. So they identified with it. Then the second study in that book was...
It's amazing.
Yeah. They went into a college classroom teaching some form of algebra or some higher level math, and the professor taught the class, hey, we're going to talk about this branch of algebra today. And then he said this branch of algebra was discovered by John Browning, 1850, Edinburgh, Scotland, whatever. They teach them how to do the equations, and at the end of class, they hand out a test. And in the test, there was 10 questions, and in the middle of the paper, there was a little biography of John Browning, and it had his birthday. And so half the class, when they were handed out the test, the birthday was the same birthday as that person they handed it to. The other half of the class, the birthday was random. They filmed it. The students with the same birthday worked on the problems 30% longer. Because they identified, they bought in. So Dad walks out on stage, he builds hope, and then he tells the story. His dad died when he was 5. He went to work selling peanuts on the corner when he was 6 years old. His mother, who raised him, had a 5th grade education. It was in the heart of the Great Depression in Yazoo City, Mississippi, one of the poorest states and one of the poorest towns in the country. He never did well in school. He went into the Navy at the end of World War II, never saw action. He got a little bit of college. He didn't finish college. He didn't do well in college. He gets out of college, after a year and a half or so, out of the military, and he goes to work as a salesperson. And for 2.5 years, he didn't sell anything. Well, he did. He sold his car. He sold his furniture. You know what I'm saying? And then a guy named P.C. Merrill spoke truth into his life. He said, Zig, in all my years, this is his manager, his supervisor, who he believed in. He said, Zig, in all my years, I've never seen such a waste. But if you believed in yourself and went to work on a regular schedule, you could be a champion. So Dad believed him because he trusted him. And that was when he dedicated his life to discovering what it meant to believe in yourself and to go to work on a regular schedule. And the rest was history. He became, that year, he finished number 2 out of 7,000 salespeople. In the previous 2.5 years, he'd never been in the top 5,000. After P.C. Merrill gave him that, number 2 out of 7,000. So what happens is people walk in and they hear Dad speak and they think, I could never be Zig Ziglar. He's charismatic. He's wealthy. He knows the rich guys. He's got a bunch of houses. He's funny. He's smart. He's a great speaker. And then they hear his story of failure, adversity, all these things. And then they think,
He can do it.
if he can, I can. So that's the clinch, man. That's the glue. So if you're a leader, if you're trying to inspire young people, the greatest lesson you can teach is, man, it wasn't easy for me. I was struggling. It's not sitting across and lecturing them and saying, hey, look at me. It's putting your arm around them and saying, man, I know how hard it is. I had so many failures. In fact, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
But this is what I learned. So the last 3 on that, so it's hope is number 1, identity, so people identify with Dad, and then it's will, skill, and refill. So every talk he ever gave, he said, you've got to work on your will, which is your attitude, your heart, your desire, your want to, your motivation, your inspiration. You've got to work on that every day. And then skill, that's the how-to, the process, the technique. You've got to work on that every day, right? You've got to have a great attitude, a great work ethic, that's will, and then you've got to have the skill, which is the professional things to make it happen. And then refill is simply repeat. So here's what I believe happens when Dad would speak. They'd get inspired. They'd have hope. And they'd think, well, if he can, I can too. Then they would take one truth that he gave them, and they'd go try it. But because they identified with him, they would try it 30% longer. And that 30% was the difference between getting no results and getting results. And once you get results, you think, I wonder what else that guy said was true. And you try it.
Wow, thank you very much.
Thank you.